Hey, it looks like we are live. Hey, everybody, I want to welcome you to the Fat Guys No More podcast. I am Scott Patton, and somewhere on your screen, probably next to me, I believe, is Joe Bragg, the other host of it's the wrong arrows. I actually got it right by pointing the wrong way. Joe Bragg, the other host of the Fat Guys No More podcast, and we're very excited tonight to have a good friend of mine, Jamie. I always put the pleva in there, but Jamie Nickerson. She removed it on Facebook, so I'm trying to remove it from my speaking.
I was about to say, we have a brand new guest that I don't know because that's not who I was introducing. Phyllis, because that's it. Start over. I'm just kidding.
I just wanted to really confuse you and bring somebody you didn't know about here. So
if there was a slight panic look on my face, I was like, no, that's not who we're supposed to have this week.
Yeah, it is all. There's only one Jamie Pleva Nickerson. Thank goodness. And okay. From a podcast point of view, normally we've decided we're going to do cleanup at the beginning, but since we did our 0.5 episode the other day to test out the screen stuff, we really don't have much to comment on. I would like to say that our friends at Barman and Bevo, they really did enjoy the split screen more than the old swapping face back and forth method. So that is good.
So let me ask you on this one. So since you're actually seeing this, I guess I could bring it up on my other phone. Are we all side by side? Are you in the middle? How's this work?
What I see right now is you are on the top left corner. I am in the top right corner, and which, by the way, when you pointed backwards, and Jamie's in the bottom, and I'm fairly certain bottom down there. And Jamie, she can do it like this and point at us. and currently we are in the cleanup mode. So we do have. You're actually seeing this. I guess I can turn the volume down. Joe's now watching the podcast. We do have two viewers. One of them, I think, is Joe.
Yeah, I'm out.
So before we get into the meat of this podcast that we're doing tonight, Joe and I received at the firm today, we received a very bizarre email. The subject was emesis in the workplace. And I was like, did he forget to put an N there? Do we have somebody we don't like? I should have screenshotted or something so we could use the features and show this, but apparently Joe and I are not allowed to barf in the trash cans at work. And if we do barf in the trash cans, we have a strict policy on how we're supposed to handle the situation. Joe just left.
Yeah.
I don't know, but hopefully he'll come.
He had to barf.
What's that?
He had to barf.
He could, and he's coming back. I'll put him back in the podcast. Let's see. Okay, he's back.
This is how you know it's live. And Joe Bragg is having internet issues tonight.
Yes, he is.
Barnum and Bailey do not have this problem because they do this together at the same place.
They do. So yeah, we are. If you do barf in your trash can before you leave the office, you're supposed to go to a website and fill out a trouble ticket to have the barf removed in a appropriate manner. So that is what emesis is, and Joe and I aren't allowed to emesis at work.
I think we should implement that. The Fat Guys No More as well. If you emesis while on the podcast, something needs to be. So you've got to fill out something to get it clarified up.
Yeah. Just let's know.
Actually, how about this? Just log off. If you feel the need to emesis, log off.
What did I say before, Scott? Is that why he logged off before?
I don't know. He probably doesn't. He's sensitive like that. So
I did not log off to emesis.
And I would like to give a shout out. Not only do we have Joe watching the podcast and on the podcast, he's kind of in a circular loop. Kellyanne Magera and Michael Vandura, aka Bevo from the Barnum and Bailey podcast, are on there. I was kind of hoping for Matt Reichert so we could reveal the secret of my cat's heritage, but we'll save that for another one since we took care of the shout out there. So,
hi, Kellyanne.
Here, I'm gonna use the fancy. So I don't know how to do it. Never mind. I'm gonna break it. Okay, I'll break something if I do. So let's not do that. So now we're going to mark emesis at work is taken care of, and now a formal introduction of my good friend Jamie Nickerson. sometimes known as Jamie Pleva Nickerson. I met Jamie roughly 2 years ago. I had just driven from Atlanta, Georgia to Disney, and I got there, and my dad was there because he also works the Tour de Pinks, and he said, "I got people I want you to meet." And I barely got time to put my bag down, and he took me over to a table, and it was Jamie and Evelyn, am I got the right name? And Tony and somebody else. And Jamie, she might have had a couple drinks before I got there. I'm not really sure. But she started talking about her husband and how he put demonic faces on her cute twins and all kinds of other stuff. Over the next 3 days, I got to know Jamie, because if you're riding a Tour de Pink with Jamie, you get to know Jamie. She's everywhere. She does not sleep for those 3 days, and she always has a smile on her face unless she's going up a hill, and then she is well past PG-13.
So before, I want to interrupt you there, Scott, for the CrossFitters that listen to it. Explain the Tour de Pink a little bit more than say, or have Jamie explain the Tour de Pink riding with Scott. I think maybe a better tour there. Just a quick explanation of what the Tour de Pink is, because while I've known Scott for a long time,
that is a
I
fair
don't know how many
comment.
people know. I don't know how many people actually know what the Tour de Pink is.
So, having said that, Jamie, why don't you fill us in on what exactly the Tour de Pink is?
Okay, so Tour de Pink is a event that's put on by the Young Survival Coalition. Young Survival Coalition, or YSC, is the premier organization that supports young women, premenopausal women diagnosed with breast cancer. And so every year they put on 3 events now. We have Tour de Pink East, Tour de Pink South, and Tour de Pink West. And it's a 3-day, 230 plus mile bicycle ride. Like on your bicycle, you pedal, not a motorcycle, bicycle ride, all to raise vital funds for the Young Survival Coalition to support young women like me with breast cancer, who had breast cancer, who are currently diagnosed with breast cancer, who are living with breast cancer. And that's what it is. 3 fabulous days of bicycle riding.
So, some say fabulous. Scott says fabulous when he's before he does it and after he does it. I'm not sure when he's doing it how fabulous it is. He talks about how tough they are.
Well, Scott tends to be the guy who finds the weakest link and is like, "I'm bringing you into the rest stop. I'm bringing you home to the finish line." And
That is true. What people don't realize is
convoy.
that I have actually had my hand on Jamie's buttocks before, and she enjoyed it.
True story. I hope Kevin's not watching this now.
I was gonna say it's okay. Scott's wife will probably listen to this, and that's okay.
Jamie, that's kind of like that's kind of a thing like when Joe and I used to go running, and we both went through some troubled times in our lives, and we'd go on a run and we would share things, very personal things with each other, and we had a rule: what happens on the run stays on the run, and what happens on a hill in the Tour de Pink stays on the hill in the Tour de Pink.
and until it comes out on Fat Guys No More podcast.
Yeah, that's true. But I'd like to also point out that we do have another watcher, the first family watcher. Somewhere in Joe's house, there's somebody else watching.
Hold on, watch this. I'm gonna figure that way. She's that way.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that was a good question, Joe. And Robin Nickerson is here.
That's my mother-in-law.
That's Jamie's mother-in-law. Okay, and now I'm pulling back up the agenda. Jamie, I wanted to Joe sent us down the what is Tour de Pink, which I was going to cover a little bit later, but for the people who don't know you, and Joe's included, and I every time I tell your story, which you told me I could, I screw it up. So I know your family, not just you, but I know your family has been really affected by breast cancer. So can you give us a rundown on that? What I believe your sister had it, you, and just let us know.
Right. So many moons ago, like 20 plus years ago, my grandmother on my father's side was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she ended up passing away from the disease. She had it twice, once diagnosed in her 40s and once in her 80s. 3 months after she passed, my oldest sister, Tracy, was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 31. So she had breast cancer, and, we, at that point in time, no one really knew that young women got breast cancer. I mean, it was very not talked about a lot. A lot of people didn't know about young women with breast cancer. It was all your grandmother's disease, your mother's disease. And my sister would go to support groups, and, it would all be mothers and women her grandmother's age who weren't in the same place as her, because Tracy was a mother to a 1-year-old son. She had been married for a few years. She was, a big time executive at a PR firm. She was just starting out life. She was 31, and she felt like she didn't have anyone to talk to. And that's when she ran into the Young Survival Coalition, which was started by 3 young women who had no one else to talk to, and they found each other. So it was 3 young women who understood what they were going through. And Tracy did about a year of chemotherapy. She had a mastectomy with reconstruction. And about 2 years after, she was in her bathroom with my other sister, Liza, and was just kind of, touching her shoulders and stuff. And she felt a lymph node, a swollen lymph node. And she went back to her oncologist, and it was cancer had come back. Now, before I get there, I should probably tell you that when Tracy, after she had Jason, she was in the shower. And I don't know, for you guys, who have wives and their wives breastfed, she was in the shower rubbing out clogged milk ducts and stuff. And she felt a lump that was kind of like not rubbing out. She's like, all right, that's really weird. And she went to her doctor, and the doctor looked at her and he said, Tracy, you're too young for breast cancer. Go home.
Wow.
Months later, she goes back to the doctor. She's like, it's still there. He's like, I'll look at it. I'll biopsy, but it's probably nothing. Well, 2 weeks later, we found out she had breast cancer. So she was dismissed for a good 6 months before she was even diagnosed. So then a couple years later, her breast cancer comes back. And for 9 years, my sister's cancer was coming back and going away. And it went from her breast to her lymph nodes to her brain, back to her lymph nodes, around her lungs. It just kind of traveled. And she lived with metastatic breast cancer for 9 years. Lived with it. She went to chemo every Wednesday for 9 years. She had multiple surgeries. She had to have platelets. She had to have blood infusions. She got her butt kicked, but she lived. She got her motorcycle license, and she celebrated her 40th day driving from Edinburgh to London. She did all sorts of cool things. She did her horseback riding. She did so much cool stuff in that time. And during that time, I started doing a lot of volunteering with YSC because Tracy was so heavily involved with YSC. And I had actually read about a breast cancer gene, the BRCA gene 1 and 2, which was fairly new, coming out, 10, 11, 12, 13 years ago. And I kind of said to myself that I read the article, I was like, wouldn't it be so funny if we had that in our family? But it wasn't really talked about again. It was just new coming out, and it was a small percentage of women who actually had breast cancer, who had this gene. So a couple of years later, I'm doing my breast self-exam, and I find a lump under my armpit, and I'm like, okay, what's this? So I go to my breast surgeon, who my mom, as soon as my sister was diagnosed, decided that all 4 of her daughters were now going to see breast surgeons every year just to be checked. So I went to him and I was like, I kind of felt this lump. And of course, my breast surgeon's amazing. He took me seriously. He's like, I don't feel it now, but let's do an ultrasound. Let's do a mammogram. Let's just do it all. Let's check you out. And then while we were sitting there, I was like, I heard about this gene. Do you think I could have it? And he's like, well, let's go. You could, but let's go run down the ringer here. And so he basically had this checklist that an insurance company looks at, and you had to hit like 26 points, and each thing you could mark off was a point. So he's like, okay, does your mother have it? No. Okay, that's not a point. Does a sibling have it? Yep. Okay, that's 2 points. Does your maternal grandmother have it? Nope, that's not a point. So I think I came to like 18 points or something. I was like, how many points shy of an insurance company approving this blood test? And he sat on the phone for 4 hours the next day fighting with my insurance company to cover me to get the test. So I got approved.
That's a good doctor.
Yes,
yeah.
my breast surgeon, Dr. Andrew Ashikari. He's like the greatest man of all time. I love him. So I went for my blood test, and it took about 6 weeks for the results to come back. And, I go into a room, and my mom was there with me, and there's doctors there, and then there's like a therapist there who's there for when you get the results, and they're running everything down, and they're like, so you have the BRCA1 gene, which means you have about an 86% chance of getting breast cancer before you're 80 and a 50 some odd chance of getting ovarian cancer before you're 50. And I was just like, oh. And
86%.
86%
wow.
getting breast cancer before I'm 80. So I was just kind of like, okay. And it didn't really hit me because I kind of had a feeling I was going to have it. And then, of course, Tracy got the test, and of course she had it. And then my other two sisters, my mom was like, well, now you need to get tested. So my other two sisters got tested and they do not have the gene. So then my mom and dad decided to get tested, and the gene came from my father's side of the family, which a lot of people weren't talking about. Everyone always assumed it came from your mother. Well, it came from my father, because obviously his mother died of breast cancer. So I was left to make the decision of, do I just continue to, get tests, get mammograms, ultrasounds, sonograms, to make sure I'm okay? Or do I do something radical and get a preventative double mastectomy with reconstruction? And after I talked to my two awesome doctors, my breast surgeon and my plastic surgeon, Dr. Ashkari and Dr. Salzberg, I was like, I'm not doing cancer. I'm all good with that. I see what my sister's doing. I think I'll pass. Like, I'm barely an A cup. Let's go get those C cups that I was never given. Like, so I scheduled my surgery, and in August I scheduled my surgery for January 15th, and between August and September, my sister Tracy ended up getting really sick. Her cancer was she had a wound on her shoulder from when she was burned during radiation. It was starting to open. You could see her clavicle. It just wasn't good.
That sounds terrible.
It was terrible, especially when you were asked to clean it. And I'm not someone who can do that stuff. And you do things for the people you love. And so we decided, to help treat the wound, we put her in like an oxygen hyperbaric chamber, which was supposed to stimulate the cell growth, but at the same time, it stimulates other cells, which made the cancer bloom and just infested in her lungs. So in November of 2008, just before Thanksgiving, she went into the ICU, and she was there for about a week, and then they were like, we have to intubate her. She's not doing well. We need her to rest. She's stressing. So we said goodbye to her. But we said, we'll see you. You need to rest. You have to do this. Rest yourself, and we'll see you when they wake you up. You're good. So they intubated her, and in that period of time, I decided to go for all my pre-surgery tests. So I had to have tests before my mastectomy just to make sure there's no cancer. So I had my very first and very last mammogram. I went in on a Wednesday, on the 3rd of December. I had my mammogram. I sat down. 2 minutes later, a nurse comes over and it's like, I need to talk to you. And I was like, oh, shit. It's like, no, what's going to happen? They pull me in the back. They put up my mammogram, and they're like, you see this? These are calcifications. We need to see this. We need to see what this is. And I was like, okay. So they pulled me in the next day, December 4th, to have a biopsy. And on December 5th, Dr. Ashkari called me and he said, Jamie, it's cancer. And I was like, okay. So he's like, we're bumping up your surgery.
It's a good thing we have surgery already scheduled.
Right? He's like, well, we're bumping it up to December 15th, and it's no longer preventative. It's now we're saving your life. So let's do this. So December 15th, myself and about 14 people went to the hospital for me to have surgery.
You usually do travel with an entourage. I mean, at a Tour de Pink, there's like Jamie and like 13 Pleva people running around behind her.
I'm high maintenance. Come on.
Yeah, but you're entertaining.
Well, I think that's why they follow me. So I had the surgery, and then I had to go meet with an oncologist who also happened to be my sister's oncologist. And he was like, you're doing chemo. He's like, I don't care. I mean, granted, I was stage 1. There's no lymph nodes involved. But he was like, nah, you're doing chemo. I'm killing whatever could be hanging out in your body. So during that period of time, Tracy was just getting more sick. On Christmas Eve of 2008, she woke up. So we considered it our Christmas miracle. So we got to see her and talk to her. She stayed in the hospital all of January. At that period of time, Anna, who I adore, who was acting president of YSC at that time, gave me a call and said, Jamie.
Is that Anna Beakley-Cluxton?
Yes, Anna Cluxton.
Who is watching and loves you. She said that earlier. And it was displayed on the screen. You just can't see that.
So Anna had called me. She was acting president of YSC, and obviously she knew Tracy, and a lot of people in the YSC family knew Tracy, so they automatically converged upon me and my family. They're like, oh shit, we have to be there. So like, I mean, I was all YSC'd up during this time.
YSC'd up?
Scott, you laugh, but I've seen you YSC'd up.
I mean, from like Joy Simha and Lanita and Anna and Lisa Frank. I mean, I was like there. I mean, there was no downtime. Jenna, So Anna called me and she's like, listen, I know you're not thinking of you right now. I know you have a lot on your plate. I know you're going to do chemo, but you need to go and you need to talk to a doctor about freezing your eggs before you do chemo, because chemo can damage a young woman or even a man's reproductive system. So she's like, you need to talk to someone about freezing your eggs, because there's a chance that after you get blasted with chemo, you're unable to have kids, because that is something that Anna ran into and no one had told her to freeze her eggs. So I went and I met with a doctor and he's like, let's do it, but I want to talk to your oncologist, because obviously they were nervous about pumping me full of hormones. So my oncologist was like, do it, do what you got to do, because I'm still blasting you when you're done. So I'll get whatever the hell does get made. So in February, I started going through all the shots and all the blood tests. And then on February 19th of 2009, I was home with my dad and my boyfriend at the time. And we got a phone call from my mom saying, you need to get down to Jersey. She's not going to last the night. So my sister was essentially dying from breast cancer at that very moment. So we hopped in the car, we drove down. I think we got there around 11 o'clock at night. In the hospital room, my sister was there. She was intubated. She'd been intubated again on February 14th, February 15th, because she ended up having a couple seizures and just they had to intubate her again. So it was me and my mom and dad and my sister's husband, my sister's 9-year-old son, both of my sisters, their husbands, and my sister's mother-in-law, and I believe her sister-in-law was there. And we were just in the room sitting there with her. And if I cry, you're gonna have to like. We were talking.
We'll go to Joe. Joe, I could take you off screen if necessary.
We were talking about her and sharing stories. And I just remember my mom looking at me and she's like, you need to talk to her. She can hear you. And so I basically just got really close to her ear and I thanked her for saving my life. Because of her, I knew about the YSC and to be my own best health advocate. So I thanked her and I told her I loved her and that she better stick around and always be around me, because I'd be really pissed if she wasn't. And then
that's a good sister right there.
And then I remember my mom taking her hand and singing You Are My Sunshine to her, because my mom sang it to all of us. It was a lullaby she sang to us, and she sang to her, You Are My Sunshine. And then she told her it was okay to go. And at 5:10 a.m., my sister passed away from breast cancer, metastatic breast cancer, on February 20th of 2009. And
well, if you want to cry, feel free, because I am.
I was about to say, if I start crying, who are we going to? Promise, I got a little choked up there for a second.
And I remember after my sister passed, I looked out the window of her door and all the nurses, because they had gotten to know our family and my sister so well, I just remember them standing around the screen of, her heartbeat. And when it flatlined, I just saw them hugging each other and crying. And I just I teared tail out of the room. I had to get out of there, And then, of course, my mom came and found me and we had some conversation. But an hour and a half later, I was driving my butt. That was in Jersey. Somewhere in Jersey, New Brunswick. And I then, an hour after my sister passed, hopped in the car, drove up to White Plains, New York to go get tested to see how my eggs were doing. And I just remember walking into the room and seeing my doctor, my fertility doctor, and he's like, hey, what's going on? And I was like, my sister's dead. She just died like an hour ago. And he's like, what? I'm sorry, what? And I was like, I don't know. It was just very.
I got nothing else. That's what's happened.
So he was like, okay, we're gonna make this quick and painless. Let's just check you out. And he ended up, I went home. He ended up calling a couple hours later. He's like, listen, your eggs are ready to go. We need to give you a trigger shot on Sunday. We're gonna be retrieving your eggs Monday morning. Let's work with whatever you have going on. I was like, well, the wake's on Monday. And he's like, your first thing Monday morning, you come in and you got to do what you got to do. And I got home. So, that Friday, Saturday night, I was home and my dad comes in the door from being down in Jersey with with my mom and my other family. My dad came home to be with me. And I just remember him walking in the door and he looked at me and he's like, you're not dying. You are not going to die. This is not happening again. This is not happening on my watch. You're not dying. And I just looked at him and I was like, okay, I'll do my best.
Got it.
So on that Monday, my dad drove me into the city and I walked in. And as soon as I walked into the room, the waiting room. The nurse pulled me in the back. She's like, Jamie, you come on in back. We're taking you first. And they, she asked if someone was there with me. And I was like, my dad's here. So my dad came in and he's like, this is so surreal. I'm helping one daughter secure her future. And then I'm going to help another daughter, with her life end, bring her an end to her life. And I got wheeled into the back and they tried to take my blood pressure and they're like, honey, you gotta relax. Your blood pressure's really high. And I just kind of looked at her. She's like, I know. I can give you something, but I don't know if you're going to remember what the doctor says to you. I'm like, he's sticking something up my hoo-ha. He's sucking out some eggs. What more do I need to know? Just give it to me. And he's like, okay, we're just going to give you something. And I woke up, 20 minutes after the procedure and I looked at my dad. I was like, we got to go. And we drove down to Jersey. And, a couple hours later, I was reading my sister's eulogy. And then a week after that, I did chemo and I did 16 rounds and I got my ass handed to me. And during that time, my now husband decided he wanted to start dating me when I weighed like 86 pounds and I was bald and I was going through chemo and he was telling me how hot I was. And our first date was at a Boys to Men concert who he's obsessed with. So
wow, that's a little trivia fact that I didn't even know there.
Yes, oh my God. Our first date was Boys to Men, and I wore a wig, and I just remember feeling so insecure when we were at dinner, and he was staring at me, and I'm like, is it crooked? Like, do I look that bad? Because I had chemo the day before. And he's like, you're so hot. I can't believe you're here with me right now. I've been in love with you forever. I'm like, okay, creepy. Okay.
We may have to have Kevin on for a retort and to abuse him about this Boys to Men thing that I didn't know about.
And the other fun fact is that he's actually my best friend's little brother.
I did not know that.
Yes. Kevin is 7 years younger than me.
Oh.
Robbing the cradle.
My Kevin story is, and this is completely off subject, but it's on the subject of Kevin. Last year, Kevin just declared, never said any of that, and it is on the screen. But I walked into the bar at Tour de Pink East. Okay, hold on. Tour de Pink is not about going to bars, but it does happen in the evening. I walk into the bar, and Kevin goes, "Good Lord, Scott, you are the skinniest guy in the bar." And I was like, "Nah, man." He goes, "No, Scott, look around." And I turned around. And I was the skinniest guy in the bar. It didn't make me that skinny, but I was literally, for the first time in my life, the skinniest guy in a room, and it was pretty shocking. So, I'll never forget Kevin saying that and making me turn around. So,
yep, Kevin and I dated while I was going through, end of the chemo and just recovery, and then follow-up surgeries. Kevin's favorite birthday present was that following year. His birthday's March 19th. So when you have a mastectomy, fun fact.
Hold it, his birthday's March 19th?
March 29th.
Okay, yeah, because that's the other thing. Kevin and I are born on the same day.
Yes.
I've just been using that day a lot more than he has.
But funny thing is when you have a mastectomy, a complete mastectomy, they take your nipples and everything. Now they can create nipples, the magic of plastic surgery. Well, on his birthday that year.
Joe, hold on. Joe, in all of your life, did you ever
nipples,
think on our podcast we'd be discussing creation of nipples?
Look, I want you to know, so this is an amazing story. It really is. It's quite amazing. But on the podcast, we've actually heard something go up somebody's hoo-ha and sucks things out, and creating nipples.
This is going to be your best rated podcast ever.
Well, I think we might have to put the E tag on this one for explicit, but whatever.
One of my favorite things, though, honestly, is having this because we're such a brand new podcast. So if anybody goes back when Scott and I are rich and famous from podcasting, this is where they'll start. So they'll get this story from when they start binge listening to our podcast.
There you go.
You're like, she was your best guest. You guys just went down.
But you are setting the bar pretty high.
I am. So yeah, on his birthday that year, I had nipples created and put on. So every time his birthday rolls around, he's like, "Yay, my birthday! I get my birthday presents." I'm like, "Get away!"
Yay for nipples!
His birthday nipples.
Yes.
I don't think I could ever have come up with the sentence "Yay for nipples" before my entire life.
So, let's see.
Okay, so now that we've discussed your nipples, as strange as that may be,
created nipples.
Yeah.
Her man-made nipples.
Or were they woman-made nipples?
Man-made, actually.
Man-made.
Salisbury, he was amazing.
Yep. You are very fond of him. And you should tell him he's got like numerous shout outs on our podcast. So
a
that's
couple years later, I go and do Tour de Pink again because I finished chemo, and Lisa Frank and Anna Cluxton have been doing Tour de Pink, and they're like, you need to come and check out this ride. So I went and met them. They finished in the city that year, and I met them, and I was like, what is this? This looks kind of cool. Like, all right, I'm a little interested. And then they suckered me into signing up for the following year, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to happen. And
how many have you done?
this year's my 10th one. 10 years
Okay.
to celebrate, bring 10 years of Survivor.
10 years and 10
That's
Tour
awesome.
de Pinks. Yeah. This year I will do number 7 and 8. So I'm not too far behind you. I am.
You've started later than me.
I did. My first Tour de Pink was in I did Atlanta in 2014. Mm-hmm. And then they took away Atlanta, and I thought it was too far to go to New Jersey. So or God forbid, California. So I took 2015 off for any number of reasons, and then I needed something in my life to get me back on track. And they announced the inaugural South Ride, which is where you and I met in 2016. So I, within an hour of hearing about it, signed up for that. And then, due to a very long story, on a whim, I ended up on Team Pleva for East Coast for the one day, and I did that. And then last year I did all three, South, East, and West.
Right.
And this year I'm doing South and West, not to be confused with the airline.
South and West, not Southwest.
Correct. So I did my first one, I've only done I've done East Coast and the one South, but I did my first East Coast in 2010. And gotcha. I'm adamant I'm riding it by myself. Like, Kevin wanted to ride with me, and I was like, no, I'm doing this by myself. I kind of did cancer by myself. I'm doing this by myself. However, my brother-in-law, who is my sister's wife who passed away, he did do one day of the ride with me. But that year was a hellish, hilly, brutal ride. It was just after a hurricane had ripped through, so they had to like change routes around, so it ended up being even longer. And I rode every freaking mile that year, like every mile, crying and screaming and swearing the whole way.
Actually, as my dad is texting me during the podcast, and I guess I can take Kevin's. I didn't say that off there, but my dad works the Tour de Pinks on a motorcycle, and he will attest that Jamie said everything she just hinted at right there. Now, one thing that I heard when you gave your speech at Tour de Pink South in 2014, you spoke of, and you hinted at it earlier, but what didn't really come out is, because of the people in the YSC and Anna, who is listening right now, telling you to save your eggs, I believe because of that right there is why you actually have Amazing and Grace, or Gracie and Tess, your twin daughters right now. Exactly. Can you explain that better than I just did?
So, like when I was saying, when I was, Tracy was dying and I had just been diagnosed and getting ready to do treatment, Anna had called me and said, listen, you need to freeze your eggs because, again, when young people are diagnosed with breast cancer, oftentimes it wreaks havoc on their fertility and their, that reproductive system. So I went and I had 7 eggs retrieved, 7 eggs frozen. I called them my little insurance policies. The doctor even sent me, I wish I had the picture. It's actually sitting next to my bed. There was a picture. They sent me a picture of the 7 frozen eggs in their little, Petri dishes. And Kevin ended up, when they came in, Kevin took them and put them in a frame and put them next to the bed and was like, those are the babies. And we named them after the dwarves because there were 7. And Kevin and I got married. So did my first Tour de Pink. At the second Tour de Pink, Kevin proposed at the finish line. There's a video.
Awesome.
Right where we finished East this year.
Correct. I actually hit him 3 times because I was really embarrassed and people were staring. So I think I smacked him like 3 or 4 times.
I've seen the video. You did beat him up.
I did. It was great. And then Kevin and I got married that June in 2013. And a couple months before we even got married, we started trying to have kiddos because we didn't know what was going to happen with me. So we tried, and a year went by and it didn't work. So I went back to my fertility doctor and he put me on some fertility meds. And then 2000, well, guess it was 2013. We didn't even try for a year. In 2013, we went in November, just before Thanksgiving. I found out that my hormone levels were up and that I was pregnant. And then went back 2 days later, and the hormone levels dropped. I had a miscarriage or a chemical pregnancy, which basically means that the egg was fertilized. It just didn't stick to the uterine wall. So after that comes like, we're done. We're not doing this anymore. We're dipping into the eggs. Let's go. And I was like, okay, let's wait till after the holidays. So I was like, I need some time. So I had to talk to my so because Anna telling me to freeze eggs, I now have these 7, insurance policies.
The seven dwarfs.
The 7 dwarfs. So January rolls around. I go see my oncologist. I'm like, listen, I'm getting knocked up. I'm pulling out the eggs. You're going to have to be okay with it. He's like, that's fine. He's like, I'm just going to see you every month while you're pregnant and while you're doing the process. Because we didn't know how many tries it would take. So so in February, I had all the shots. We had everything going. We had, everything planned, and my body was primed and ready. And the eggs, the doctor was like, okay, we're going to unthaw all 7 eggs. So we unthawed 7 eggs, and the doctor's like, there's a chance they might not all unthaw, so we're just going to do 7. So we unthawed 7, all 7 unthawed. But out of those 7, only 4 were mature enough to be fertilized. Out of the 4, 3 of them made it 24 hours, and out of 3, 2 made it to my actual transfer day. So I was sitting there on Wednesday, March 19th of 2014, with Kevin and my fertility doctor, Dr. Klein.
So romantic.
It was. And they were like, we're putting in 2 eggs. And I was like, no, you're not. And he's like, the chances of 2 eggs taking, I'm like, excuse me. The chances of 2 eggs taking are so slim. The chances of having BRCA1 are so slim. The chances of you getting breast cancer are so slim. Like, if we have not learned that slim things happen to me, it's like, we're not putting And he's like, Jamie, it's just better. And Kevin's like, we're doing 2. We're doing 2 eggs. We're just doing 2. I'm like, oh, I'm so happy you've made the decision. So 2 eggs went in. And it was great because I'm laying there getting ready to be, have the eggs put in. And the nurse standing next to me said to me, I remember you. I was here the day you had these eggs retrieved. And I remember your sister. And we all know your story. And we're all praying for you and praying. And we know your sister's here with you right now. And I was like, okay, well, that's great. And then Dr. Klein came in.
Man, this is just really one romantic getting pregnant session. You got the doctor, Kevin, we're all praying, your sister's here with you. It's just like a big party.
It's a big orgy. It's a petri dish. So the doctor comes in. He's like, not too much pressure. Let's go. He finished. He's like, I cannot be any happier with that placement. Go lay down for 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, I left. My mom and I went to St. Patrick's Cathedral. We lit a candle under St. Teresa, and had lunch, and then went home. I started a new job a week later. A week later, Kevin and I went into the city. I had some blood tests taken. They were going to tell me if I was pregnant. We were on the train ride home. My phone died. I was like, oh, whatever. Got back to the car, plugged the phone in. There was a voicemail, and I was like, oh, God, they already know. This isn't good. And they played it. Congratulations, you're pregnant. It took on the first try. And
that's awesome.
My hormone levels were super high. So Kevin's like, it's twins. I'm like, no, it's just a good number. He's like, no, that means it's multiple. I've been reading.
Good
like,
God, I can only imagine you hormonal. Sorry, I just...
So anyway.
Guys, if you're not watching, if you're watching this, her nose itched. Just a nose itch.
Oh, I actually missed that because my screen's only about 1 inch by 2 inch. But yes, yes, that was actually the first finger on the podcast.
You're welcome.
It's not the first time you've done that to me, and I'm 1,000% sure it's not the last.
Yes. So 2 weeks after we did that first blood test, we went in. The doctor saw 2 sacs, and he's like, "It looks like there's 2." Kevin started jumping up and down. I was like, "Dear God!" I started crying because I was paranoid.
I was about to say, did you cry? Because
I was scared. But the doctor said, there's a chance that both sacs might not take. We have to see if there's heartbeats. 3 weeks later, we go back. There's 2 flipping heartbeats. So
there you go.
November 5th of 2014, we gave birth to Teresa, who was named after my sister Tracy. So Tracy's name is Teresa, but my nephew Jason asked me not to call her Tracy because he wants that. So we call her Tess. And my other daughter is Grace Ann. Because of Anna's phone call, we were graced with our 2 babies. So Tess and Grace.
Amazing Grace. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so what we've put together here today is your story and how breast cancer has affected your life, and throughout the story, from basically from the beginning, because your sister was involved, up until this point, the YSC and the Tour de Pink have been involved. You've ridden them, you've done them, you've raised more money than probably anybody other than Pablo, because that man is like a machine. And you
Tony,
may
Pablo and Tony Dean, they're
yeah,
two big fundraisers.
incredible.
And Jill Fry. Jill Fry is a huge fundraiser.
But regardless, through this whole thing, we've seen the Tour de Pink. We've seen what was done for you, and the money that's raised through the Tour de Pink is used to do that. And also, we're doing this podcast the day after the national conference, which I'm pretty sure you've probably been to. It's not something Joe and I would ever really go to, but where they bring, I think it was like 600 women who have been affected with breast cancer to Orlando and show them that there is life after breast cancer. And
It's
so
600 survivors, co-survivors. There's, like spouses, there's parents, there's siblings, there's friends, there's medical community. And basically it's to show other young women, because to this day, young women are still surprised to know that there's other young women like them out there. And it's to bring them all together to find, for camaraderie and for support, plus to also educate about what new is coming out in regards to treatments. There's a very difficult topic that they talk about end of life matters, how to deal with, your end of life happening and things that you should get in order and that type of stuff, certain affairs. It's, how to support co-survivors and what they need to support themselves, or there's talk about fertility options. It's a whole huge 3 days. I actually spoke at this conference. I was an opening speaker the year that I was diagnosed, and that's my sign up for Tour de Pink, when Lisa and Anna were like, "You're signing up here," and I was like, "Okay," and I spoke, and I remember going to many of them with my sister. I mean, they've been going on for a long time, and we used to go every year with my sister when she was, going through cancer and living with cancer. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And the YSC, with the money raised, what they can also do is, it's expensive to go fly to Orlando if you live in California, and it's expensive for the hotels. And what YSC does with this money is they're able to fund survivors' trips who are in need and they want to go to this event. So that's another thing that your money does.
That's cool.
So, in addition to raising the money, which is once you're there and riding, you don't really think too much about the money you just raised. But one of the big things we do is we raise money. And I'm going to ask in every comment posted here that you guys consider donating to either my Tour de Pink South or Jamie's Tour de Pink East or my Tour de Pink West. I don't care, because honestly, all the money, South is first. We'll work on your East later. I got to cover South, but the money's going to the YSC, whether it goes through Jamie's page or Scott's page, and that's the important thing. But one other thing that has not come out in this podcast is you rode Tour de Pink on a bike provided by Tour de Pink and the wonderful sponsor Liv, which is a bicycle manufacturer.
Yes, my first year.
And subsequently, every year, breast cancer survivors, are able to submit a request for a survivor bike, and the only requirement is they complete a Tour de Pink. If they don't complete a Tour de Pink, they have to give the bike back. But with the resources available, people like myself and there's countless others. I really don't want to take too much credit, but riders who have more experience and ride more, we go, and rather than ride our normal speed, we take it down a notch and we ride with people, and we try to make sure that everybody stays in a group. Like when I was riding on East, it was Aaron and I can't remember everybody's name, but I found Jamie and I kept them all together and gave people assistance up hills. It's really a wonderful experience. I've been around cycling my entire life, and I've never I've never sat in a hotel room after a bike ride crying tears of joy because I actually just helped somebody achieve a life goal. Um, and sometimes that life may not be that much longer, which is a very hard thing as well. But when you know that somebody wanted to do this so bad and you help them finish, that's what keeps me going back.
Yeah.
That and the fact that at Tour de Pink South, Jamie told me she'd hunt me down and kill me if I didn't go back. That's another thing.
I think I told a room full of people I'd hunt them down and kill them if they didn't come back. But that's what's so cool about YSC. I mean, Tour de Pink, and why I keep coming back, and why I think so many people come back, because, and you know what? In that ride of usually about 200 riders, it's usually about 50 of us who are really only survivors. So that 150 other people are people like Scott or my husband or nurses, nurse oncologists or cousins or friends or aunts or uncles or fathers or mother. You know, it's not always survivors. It's 50 survivors and 150 people who just want to help the YSC as a whole, and survivors who are there wanting to take on a Tour de Pink. Tour de Pink is what it was for me the first year I did it, and what it is for most survivors the first year they do it. It's taking your body back from cancer. It's showing that you have control of your body. This is still my body, and cancer can't stop me from doing something this physically amazing and tough. And that first year I was hell bent on doing every mile, and I did it. And I have not done it since.
Yes, you kind of have become a sag hag.
But I did do my first century in Orlando.
Was that yeah, I remember seeing you finish that. Yep.
Yes, because we had to make sure, because Ishwan had passed away a few weeks
Yes.
before, and Pablo was carrying her ashes to the beach. And so the captains of actually Team Mari Ride, Team Pleva, or Team Mini Miracles, and Team I Ride for Her were together along with some other Team Mari riders, and we brought Ishan home to the beach, which was amazing. And when we were tired and Tony was like yelling at me to get in the sag, and I was like, nah, we gotta go. And he's like, man, if I tell Tony to get on the bike and ride, he gets on the bike and ride. So
Well, maybe you should tell Tony that more often. Just kidding. um, well, we have a few minutes left, and I'm going to open this up for questions. Currently, we have 6 people watching. I don't know who they are at the moment, but if you guys have a question for Jamie or Joe or Scott right now, I'm going to tell Joe to start thinking of a question, and I'll shut up. But if you guys have a question, throw it up in a comment on the post right now, and I'll echo it back to Jamie, and we'll get your question answered. But Jamie's talked about a lot of stuff there, Joe. You got any thoughts or comments?
One thing I actually did want to say, because I know, Scott, you ride when you do your Tour de Pink, you do it for your aunt, right?
Yeah, my Aunt Melissa, who passed away in 2014 after
Uh,
her second bout with breast cancer.
so yeah, one thing I just wanted to mention, it seems that everybody. One thing I really like, and honestly didn't know much about the YSC until hearing the story. I knew Scott always supported it, and so I support Scott. So he's like, "Hey, I need $50 to get to whatever number," and I'm like, "Sure, I guess I'll throw $50 at you." But hearing the stories of it, and one thing is you hear a lot of people talk negative about like Susan G. Susan G. Komen. Did I say that
Susan
right?
B. Komen.
B. I'm like, I want it to be a G, but where the money goes and stuff like that. And so it's somebody you don't really know where all that goes. And hearing these stories like this, I think it's pretty amazing to actually know where that money goes and what it actually affects, how it affects these women. And the women that my Aunt Nancy, I know, was diagnosed with breast cancer when she was young. I think, and I'm not sure, my Aunt Jan was also diagnosed, I believe, and much like your sister, I think it spread throughout her body and does what it does. So it's really cool to hear these stories about young women that really don't think about it. And as a man, I sort of feel bad because I don't think about that. It's not a part of my life, but it is really cool to hear these stories and how they affect and how something like YSC actually is out there to help young women.
yeah. Well, just so you know, you do have a 2% chance of getting breast cancer.
I am aware.
And actually, my father has to go for mammograms once a year because of his heightened risk with breast cancer with the BRCA gene.
Yeah, I'm definitely aware. It's I think it came up. I don't know what, probably an episode of Shameless or something like that. That something that made no sense, and some guy got breast cancer, and I was like, I should probably check myself out. just in case, and then you kind of feel weird.
But YC is great.
Your wife walks in on you while you're squeezing your own boobs, and things gets kind of awkward.
Well, when you're talking about the money, YC is very transparent. You can go to their website and it shows you exactly where your money goes, and you can see that it goes to, educating young women, educating the community, educating the medical community that breast cancer can and does happen to young women. It goes to helping young women, find support when they team up with other young survivors. It goes to their education materials. It goes to funding, like they did with Giant, being able to do the bicycles and funding the YC conference. It all goes to helping. Granted, a small portion of that goes to supporting the other organizations and other medical communities that find the cure. But until there's a cure, the women who are currently living with metastatic breast cancer, the women who are currently in the midst of the disease, they need support now. So that's why Focus is supporting women who are fighting.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing.
Which is totally needed. But they do support the organizations that will find the cure, because of my gene, my daughters each have a 50% chance of having that BRCA1 gene mutation, and I'll be damned if they have to have cancer, ever.
Well, so that actually kind of leads into a question I have. So I'm a guy who raises money and rides bikes and dyes his facial hair pink, and I'm well known around the circles, and I'm guessing based on the fact that I wear pink socks everywhere I go and my shirt says Tour de Pink and stuff like that, people are likely to tell me about their story or somebody they know of breast cancer, and it happens all the time. But if somebody comes to me or Joe, just a couple of random guys who, I mean, I have the tie to the YSC, but if Joe or I knew a young woman affected with breast cancer right now, what's the best thing we can do as a friend?
As a friend, well, if they're a young woman, you get them in touch with YSC, because the YSC can support them with hooking them up with someone else another survivor to talk to who's going through something similar, and they can team up and have, find comfort. They can help them find a face-to-face group where it's like a support group for young women. And just
they have regional representatives, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like you have to go to New York or New Jersey like you did on an hourly basis.
Correct. Well, right. So yeah, they're state leaders. I'm actually a state leader for the state of Connecticut.
Okay.
So, but as a friend, if you know someone going through breast cancer, the best thing you can do is listen and just let them have their moments. Offer to drive them to a treatment, maybe hang out with them at a treatment, because sometimes those are really long. I mean, my treatments, I opened my doctor's office and I closed it. I had 8-hour treatment sessions, sitting in the infusion chair getting juiced up with chemo. That was, So
that sounds like hell.
Yeah.
So here's a question I actually do have. We have this happen at the firm. They have, what is it, young what are the young people that we don't belong to this group?
YoPro?
Young professionals, whatever.
Yes.
What makes somebody a young person? Was there like an age cutoff? If you're 50, are you too old?
If they're
premenopausal?
Premenopausal. They help young women who are premenopausal with breast cancer. Premenopausal breast cancer is different than postmenopausal breast cancer. So it's premenopausal. You could be 45 and considered a young woman, for sure.
I had in 6 Tour de Pinks in over 5 years, whatever it is, I did not know that definition. So thank you. I learned something very important there.
Because we have YoPro thing, young professional somethings at the office, and Scott and I are Scott's much old pro than I am. I'm going to bring this up as much as I can, Scott, especially until you turn 50. Once you turn 50, then you're ancient. But even as
I'm an RO pro, really exactly. Old pro.
At my old age of 35, that I feel like I go in there and it's a bunch of kids, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm not young anymore. That's it. These kids in here were graduating or coming in when I was graduating high school. That's when they were being born.
Well, YC, it's premenopausal. So.
Gotcha. That's good information for me as well. And I'll tell you, this is one thing, and you are a person who I would call and ask if I didn't know. I did, and I'll give you an example. Everybody always talked about metastatic. I had no idea what it was, but it sounded bad. So, but finally, I don't remember who, but I got the courage up to go, what does that even mean? And somebody explained it to me. But but it's always a learning experience, and listening is a key thing I try to do. Um, each one of these rides, I learn something new and meet more people, and it's really cool. So
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so you're on a podcast with some former fat guys. I have a question. One thing relating to breast cancer is yours was different because yours is DNA. It's in your DNA.
Right.
But is there anything that people can do as far as like diet, or anything like that to help prevent that you know of? 'Cause I only ask because Scott and I have two completely different diet plans. Scott with his ketogenic diet,
there you go.
and mine with try not to eat processed foods. That's pretty much mine.
Well,
Um,
I'll tell you this much. I know a plethora of young women who didn't smoke, who ate healthy, who worked out, who didn't, drink a lot, and they still got breast cancer. So
yeah.
I don't think there's a magic diet, even though some people are like, I eat pure veg. If that's what works for you, good. I think everyone's body and makeup and genetics is different, and their body's going to react to whatever differently. Who knows what triggers that gene? We still haven't figured that out. What triggers those cancer cells to act? We just don't know. So I could never say, do this and you won't get it because there's, you say, have a glass of red wine with dinner, you don't get cancer. Now it's like, don't drink the red wine, you might get cancer. So I gotta just live and eat and drink and just keep doing me. Riding my bike, playing with my babies.
Yep.
I see. And Jamie was very excited to show off her Peloton in the background there. It's been poking out. Joe can't see it, but her Peloton.
I can't. The funny thing is, in the middle of her telling her story, all of a sudden I kind of leaned in. I was like, "Is that a bike behind her?"
Yep, it's her Peloton. So she does her indoor training there. So that pretty much wraps up what I had to talk about. Jamie, Tour de Pink, YSC, and everything else.
Do you have anything on the agenda?
I do.
We're gonna
Joe and I
go through it real fast in about 5 minutes.
Yep, because we have a rule we're supposed to cut off at exactly an hour, and since you were here, we might go to an hour and two or something if we have to. But let me put it up on the screen. Weekly update. Joe and I after we had our point 0.5 episode the other day, which was an interim episode where we just talked to each other about random stuff and pretended we had something to talk about and used the split screen, which we've used tonight rather successfully. We pondered having a weekly fitness Joe and Scott update. And I was wondering what Joe thought about that, and even Jamie can comment. So we would have a weekly update on our fitness goals and process and things we're doing, and then reserve the weekly podcast for having a guest where we have a spirited conversation like we've had tonight. I wondered if we wanted to do that or wanted to think about it, or what. That's what I have on the agenda.
Yeah, I think that's not necessarily a bad idea, especially when we have such a great story.
I would not want to go tell you that I rode up Stone Mountain faster yesterday and use a lot of time when we could have good content like what Jamie threw out there for us.
Yeah, I have. I will save my Scott using the bathroom in the forest story for later. We'll save that for podcast number 2.0 or whatever to make sure to listen to that.
We don't want me pooping in the woods to tarnish Jamie's nipples.
Right, man-made nipples. But yeah, as far as I say, a quick update for me, as I say, because I know we're running short on time. Scott, you know the CrossFit World, the Open has started.
Yes.
So
yes.
This week we had 18.1, and I completed 18.1, and I didn't. My tooth felt rules coming out of it. And I was a little worried because I have a weird wrist injury and my shoulder's been bothering me. And my rules was don't embarrass yourself and don't get hurt. And I came out of that alive. So I didn't get hurt and I didn't embarrass myself. And I didn't feel the need to redo the workout. So that made me happy as well.
I got a question on that. If like on Monday you do 18.1 and you do terrible, you can redo it on Friday?
Yeah, so they release them on Thursday at 8 p.m. You can do it as many times as you want as long as you submit your score online by Monday at 8 p.m. So
Gotcha.
Thursday to Monday, you can do as many times as you want. A lot of people do it, especially the elite level athletes, do it 2 or 3 times just to try to make sure they're in the top thing so they qualify for the next round.
Gotcha. Cool.
I am in the, as of this morning, there's still some people submitting scores or validating their scores. I'm in the 82 percentile
Nice.
for my age group. So I'm pretty happy with that.
You'd probably be in like the 76th in my age group.
Chad Bragg, if you see Chad Bragg tomorrow, ask him how he's doing it. I think because he's in the older man's group.
Not the oldest man group.
No, they actually go to 60 plus. My mom, who is 61 years old, did 18.1 as well.
Nice. It's a whole
So,
family affair.
yeah, a
But
bunch of crazy CrossFitters.
from my point of view, from a Tour to Pink update and what's going on, I did receive one of my regular donors, Kathy Peterson from the firm. She regularly donates to, and I think for the 5th ride straight, she donated $100 this week, which was very nice. That helps out a lot. So I'm going to put the link in all of our posts about this. Yeah, and if
Like
you're
and
watching,
subscribe.
if you're watching on the YouTube, like it, click like and subscribe up there, and we hope that you will come back for more. Jamie, I want to thank you for sitting down and educating us on what it's like to be a woman with breast cancer and how the YSC actually helps. Because now when I head down to South in, I guess it's like 6 weeks, I'll have a better understanding for exactly what's going on.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you know I love chatting with you, so.
And
And
this
we
should
did.
be on podcast on iTunes, and I don't know if is it on Google yet?
No, this is live on Facebook. It will be on
Podbean and iTunes.
Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube before I go to bed tonight. So there'll be plenty of places for you to find this.
So Sandra, you can listen to it on iTunes if you're not still watching.
I can't tell who's still watching. Maybe if I click here. Nope. Anyway,
All right.
it was a lot of fun, and I look forward to see. I guess I won't see you this year unless
No,
I
what is
unless
that about? I'll
well.
see your dad. Your dad and I are going to share a drink.
I'm sure. If I find a liberal donor and raise all my money really fast, I'll add East Coast on there.
Well, I'm
Uh,
just saying, did you ever tell Scott what I told you that one time about Tour de Pink East?
I am Scott.
I mean, did you ever tell Joe what I told you about raising money for Tour de Pink that one time?
Oh, okay. So Tour de Pink East. This is a funny story to end on. Um, Tour de Pink East. As I said, it was a strange story in 2016, and I just went up for the one day because I already had a plane ticket. And the one day funding raising requirement, I believe, is $350. I'm not sure, but if you get 500, you can raise a jersey. And I actually raised like $1,100 in 18 hours. I got on Facebook and acted like a fool, and everybody gave me money, which was cool. So then I wanted to do Tour de Pink East, the full thing again. And the way it works, and I don't like this actually, but I wanted to take part in it because it was there. If you have a 3-person team, and that makes it a total for the team of $7,500 that has to be raised. Excuse me, with the new fundraising requirements, that would be $9,000 that has to be raised. Well, Jamie walks into a room and they throw money at her when she's raising funds, and so if she in any given year is likely to be one of the top 3 fundraisers. So, being a lazy fool, I said, Jamie, I'm just going to ride for Team Pleva next year, and I'm not going to raise any money. I'll raise some, but you'll just cover me. And she basically told me to shut up and raise the damn money. She would not accept me on her team unless I raised the money. And I was sure that I wouldn't be able to raise the extra $2,500 in order to do a second Tour de Pink in 1 year. I mean, it's a real accomplishment to raise it for 1, but to raise it for 2 is even greater. So lo and behold, I wanted to prove to her that I couldn't, so I tried real hard to see if I could, but I didn't think I would. And yeah, I only did 3 Tour de Pinks last year and raised over the amount for each one of them. Not by a lot, but over the amount. So yeah, and it was her pissing me off that inspired me to work harder to do it. So yes. Now, it's kind of funny because somebody posted, I don't think I can raise the money. And Jamie wrote this. Oh my God, it was so sappy. It was like, you can do it. Feel the love. It's great. Everybody loves it when you try to take their money. It's so happy. And I'm like, she used the kinder, gentler version with you. She told me to shut up and raise the damn money.
Well,
Which,
she knows how to feed into you.
yeah. And by the way,
Right,
Joe,
God, just raise the money.
by the way, Joe, East is like 6 weeks away. So
East, south.
South is 6 weeks away. Yeah. So
That's
anyway,
the same weekend for the Ragnar, right? 6 weeks, 6 weeks and 4 days or something like that.
yep. Joe was actually running a like 8-person team run in the woods or something that weekend. So we'll have a good podcast to update our status on the ride and the run the week following. So I hope we can
Cool.
count on you, Jamie. Let me get that there. My finger is now on the screen. There, I'm pointing at you to listen to future podcasts. We've really enjoyed having you here.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I probably should have hidden the weekly update because we're not doing that anymore. But anyway, I'm going to end this broadcast. Now, we did learn the other day, wait until it ends. We can wrap up afterwards, but it doesn't end immediately. So good night, everybody watching. It's been fun, and look forward to talking to y'all later. And you guys, hold on for a second.
No.
See ya.